welcome to the Carriage House. I'm Chef Curtiss Hemm. Today we're going to do kind of a dan dan noodles with some modifications. So dan dan is a typical Szechuan Chinese dish of ground meat, usually pork, with noodles, kind of a spicy sauce with that, finished with some scallions and whatnot. Today we're going to do a kind of a healthier version of that. We're going to use some ground chicken. We've got some dry roasted peanuts. We've got some garlic, which we're going to chop, some light brown sugar. We've got a lighter type soy sauce, tamari, which I like a lot. We have a roasted sesame oil that we're going to use, a chili garlic sauce. Now all these things I found that are local, you're going to be able to find them in most grocery stores. The big challenge was finding a ramen style noodle. I prefer fresh, and at the inn, at the View, I have fresh ramen noodles, but there's nothing wrong with grabbing a bag of ramen for 50 cents and using the noodles and then discarding the flavor packet, because the flavor packet is garbage. There's nothing good for it. But this is a really nice piece of noodle. It's dehydrated, it cooks quickly. I usually do 1 packet per portion. I have a nice pot of water here. I have a typical noodle basket, which we're going to cook the noodles in. And then over here, I have a deep flat wok, so that's perfect for if you were going to go onto an electric skillet. These woks work great. If you're going to do gas, they also work wonderfully. So what we're looking for is surface area with the flame. So the wonder of a wok is that the wok has the flame come up and capture the sides, and it gives you more cooking area. If you don't have that, or if you have an electric range or an induction range, just simply grab a large flat skillet, oversized, and that gives you the surface area compensation for that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our sauce. So we're going to take a bowl. We're going to add ½ cup of tamari. So this is 10 ounces of tamari. We're going to use 4 ounces to make a ½ cup. Seems like a lot of tamari, but it's really not. This is going to go flavor a pound of meat plus the noodles. And tamari is different than, say, typical soy sauce, so I'm just kind of judging. I want to leave about 2/3 of the bottle. It has less sodium, it has a lighter flavor. I think it's a finer flavor, so I think we're good right there. We're going to do some light brown sugar. So we're looking for ½ cup, which is pretty much what I have here. So we've got that salty, we've got that sugar mix. We're going to look for some sesame oil, about 1 tablespoon. So that's 2 stirs around a small bowl. Put that aside. And then I want to get my garlic chopped. So this is just peeled regular garlic. One of the things I want to do is I want to be able to take off this nub end, and that's where it comes off of the plant. Those things won't break down at all during cooking. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my knife, I'm going to smash it like so. Do the same thing with the other. Had a bad day at work. And then I'm going to chop. All I'm doing there is simply bouncing. So my 3 fingers are holding that knife down on the tip of it, and then my hand over here is bouncing that, and I'm getting that motion, and I'm just bringing the product together. And it doesn't have to be minced so fine. And if you wanted to paste it or you wanted more, you could always come in like that. But this is good for us right here. Just take a little whisk things up. And I got to put my chili sauce in there yet. So we got a 1/4 cup of chili sauce. This is chili sauce with garlic. It's not too spicy, but this is to taste for the most part. So I like dan dan that's a little bit spicy. And then that is our sauce. So we'll set that aside. Make sure I wipe my hands. So the sauce is done. I want to chop my peanuts. And this is just, I'm using real estate and allowing my knife to slice through. If you try to do what I did with the garlic, you'll have peanuts everywhere. So you don't need them super fine, but you just don't want the whole nuts in there. Surface area, texture. Plus it makes it look like you did a little bit more with the dish. And those little pieces of finely ground peanuts that come from chopping that can help thicken the sauce as well too. So we've got our peanuts, and then the next thing we want to do is our scallion. So I've cleaned and trimmed my scallions. I've taken off the ends. I've left the green pieces on as whole as possible. I've taken off the outer skin, washed, dried them, and now I want to go on an extreme bias and as thin as I can. And I'm using real estate with the knife, so nice and slow. We've got that. So we've got that. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take 2 pucks or 1 puck and I'll drop it in there. I'll do 2 pucks. And I've got it in my water and I'm just going to hold that down and then slowly cook that. So now I'm going to turn my attention to the pork, or the chicken I should say. I've got peanut oil, which has a high smoke point, very typical of the dish. I'm going to turn my skillet on, my wok. Going to go probably medium heat. I want to let that pan heat up. I don't like to let pans heat up without things in it, so I'm going to go ahead and add some of my oil to that. That'll also be how I determine when the oil is hot enough. It'll have a shimmer and a gloss to it that we'll take a look at. So that'll take a minute. So for the rest of the dish, it's pretty easy. I've got my ramen. We're just going to start breaking those down. Once they soften up, they'll fill that basket nicely. I like the baskets too because typical to a noodle shop, you can drain them before you add them to your pot. So your food. So we've got our sauce, we've got our scallions, we've got our peanuts, and we've got our pork. So I'm just trying to curl this around, heat up, get the oil into the pores of the pan. I've got a wooden spatula. This is a wonderful spatula from Little Deer. They won so many design awards in Quebec, so our friends up in Canada. I know Mountain Lake has a large population of friends up there. This is a great tool. I love it to death. It is a fantastic tool to use. It's left and right hand friendly too, which is very nice. So my oil is shimmering and heating. I'm going to go ahead and add my chicken, and I'm not going to disturb it too much right now. I want to kind of let some coolness spread across the wok for a little bit. I'll move a little bit of it to the oil, but I want to get that protein on the bottom to release from the pan before I start moving around. I want to get some caramelization of this before I add the sauce and whatnot. So, and I should say there's a couple styles of dan dan noodles. There's a soupy style, which has become really popular, and there's the classic Szechuan style, which is a little bit drier, and I'm going to go for a little bit drier presentation on this. So now that I've got this chicken cooking, I'm going to go ahead and stir it up, break it up. You don't want this super, super clumpy. You want the fine pieces. You're going to eat it with chopsticks, attempt to eat it with chopsticks, I should say. Now I'm going to turn my heat up a little bit. So one of the processes of cooking is to constantly adjust the temperature to suit your needs. So I'm up on high heat. I'm letting this kind of set a little bit. I'm going to take some chopsticks, break up the noodles, stir those around, and get those back in there. So one of the things you want to have though is you want to make sure that you have fat in the meat. So this is 9% fat. The reason pork is so popular is because pork naturally has fat to it. And we want to make sure that we have that fat content in there. If you are using a lean meat, let's say you couldn't find ground pork or you wanted to use lamb or something, throw a little bacon grease in there, throw a little oil in there, something to give it kind of that fatty feel to it. And this doesn't take long to cook, especially white meat chicken like this. Maybe 4 or 5 minutes total, which makes it a great weeknight meal. So this chicken is almost fully cooked at this point in time. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to stir our sauce in. And you can already smell the chili sauce, the tamari, the sugar. This is going to be a really wonderful dish, full of flavor, easy to make. Now I should say too, if you don't want to use meat, there's vegetable proteins that you can use. You can use seitan, you can use TVP, you could use textured vegetable proteins if you wanted to. You could use mushrooms, you could grind up mushrooms. Mushrooms are going to have a lot more moisture than any of the meat, so you want to be careful of that, and you want to make sure you cook that off, or you include it as part of your sauce moisture, or you just reduce it down a little bit more. Portobellos make a great version of this. So I'm just going to drop my heat a little bit. I'm going to check on my noodles. My noodles are done, just about, probably another minute. We'll let that go, and then we'll turn ourselves to plating. So this is moving along nicely. So dan dan is an interesting dish. It starts with a cup bowl. We're going to layer our product on the bottom, and then we typically stir it over. I'll do two dishes. I'll do one as if it's service in a restaurant here, and then I'll do one typical to street food. And that is a wrap on that dish. There's that. We're going to take our noodles. We're going to drain them. So I'll do one. So I'll do that. I'll hold that back for a minute. I'll get a spoon. So this one I'm going to go right over the top, like so. And this one over here, I'm going to do it layered, like I would get if I went over to Burlington to Single Pebble or a place like that. So we're going to have our peanuts. We're going to have our scallions. Lots of scallions. And here we're going to have our peanuts and our scallions all underneath the noodles. So then I'll go ahead and I'll pop this. And those are our dan dan noodles. So you could serve these with a fork. You could do them with chopsticks if you wish. This one is unique in its presentation because you stir it over and you bring, this is typical of what they would do in a street food market, and you stir it over, where this one is pretty much just as is. But those are two really great examples of a simple weeknight, easy to do ethnic noodle that you can do at home. This is Curtiss Hemm. Thank you for joining us at the Carriage House Cooking School. If you'd like to get a copy of the recipe for yourself to print in your home, please go to mountainlake.org or the Carriage House Cooking School.